Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you a function called the trim function. So let's just say I typed in a sentence over here, right? This is I'm going to put a few spaces in between and type in sentence, right? So there's extra spaces in the sentence that shouldn't be there. So what the trim formula does, if I say equals to trim, open the bracket. Okay, it says, if I just go back before I do that, it tells you what it does. It says the trim formula removes all spaces from a text string. So this is a text string. A text string is basically any sequence of letters, right? So we're not dealing with numbers that we're adding up, where we're basically typing in words or sentences. That's a text string. So what this does, it removes all spaces from a text string except for single spaces between words. So here I've got multiple spaces between words, and the trim function will remove it. So I say, let's open up that, put it in there. That's the argument. Clicked on that cell, close the bracket and hit enter, and you can see it's actually returned this value. So this is basically a function, and it's returned, this is a sentence without those spaces in it. Now, typically, where this gets quite useful very often is when you're pulling data from some other systems and you're doing a VLOOKUP, right? And let me tell you why. Everything is working fine here, right? But sometimes you may actually get data where there's a space in front of this piece of data. So let's say I put two spaces or even just a single space between it. It immediately will cause this VLOOKUP to fail, because this VLOOKUP, the system will not view this E23 exactly the same as the E23 that it finds in the lookup table, because these have no spaces in them. So it cannot make a match. It doesn't see them as being the same. So when we use the trim formula, if there's any spaces in the front of the word, it will also remove that. So it doesn't only remove, coming back to this, this example, it doesn't only remove spaces in the middle of the words. It'll also remove any additional spaces in the front. So let's say I put a few spaces in here like that. You can see it had no change. It basically removed everything from the left of that and put it and actually then just show the sentence. So that's the one area where this will cause a VLOOKUP to fail. The other area is something that's even more difficult to spot. Let's say I edit this, right? I double click here, I'm editing it, and I just put one space and I hit enter. It fails. Now when you look at this, you may not realize, you may be thinking, why is this not picking up? You may even go into your data and say, well, here's E18, it's there, and here's E18 as well, and I can't see a difference. But the fact of the matter that there's an additional space means that Excel doesn't see them as being the same. So let's just look. When I double click here, look at where that blinking cursor is. Now this one that doesn't have a space, if I double click, you'll see it comes immediately after the 4, whereas this one, it's quite clear there's a space there, but I'm only able to see that when I carefully look for it, and also when I'm actually editing it. If I just look at it like that, there's no way to tell. So what you would normally do is you would actually insert a column, right? And we'll call this again, we'll just maybe call it employee code trimmed, right? I'm just going to use that title. And we are now basically going to use the trim formula. So what we do is we say equals trim, and we go and trim that particular text, and you can see now it's an A23, and I'll just copy that down. And what I would do then is here, I would actually do the VLOOKUP using this particular formula. I just clicked and dragged, held it, and I drag it across. So now you can see it's doing on B2, right? And if I hit enter, you can see that works. And obviously if I double click, this now becomes B3, and instead of this one with the additional space there, and that also works. Now these obviously haven't yet been fixed up because they're still referring to the old A2, but again, if I just simply double clicked and if I dragged across, if I just drag this across, you can actually see now that it's all fixed up. So this is something you very often want to do, is actually do a trimming of data. And normally what I would do is, we don't normally need this after we've done the trimming. We're happy to just keep this trimmed value, which is really what we needed in order to do the VLOOKUP. So you would normally just want to delete this. But the problem with just deleting this, because this is unnecessary, you've got it duplicated twice. The problem with deleting that is that it will immediately cause an error, because this trim formula was referring to that cell. So I'm just going to do Control Z to undo. So before you can delete it, you want to make sure that these are all values and no longer formulas. And we covered this in an earlier video, but this is a typical case where you would typically want to go Control Shift down, highlight everything, say Control C, and then go Control Alt V, and select values and now say OK. Now each of these are now values. You can see they're no longer the trim formula, and now I could go ahead and delete that without having to worry. So that's if you're just trying to do some cleanup. I just showed you how copying and pasting special with values would be used in an instance like that. So that basically covers the trim formula. Just remember, it's typically when you're manipulating any text, and especially usually it's not really so often that it's about the text in the middle, although it can be, but most of the time it's because there's some text literally either before the at the beginning of that sentence or of that word, and in some cases there may be even text that's not immediately obvious that comes after the word.